Mediphorm. Let's talk about Mediphorm. That's what we're here for. This is the Mediphorm YouTube channel, of course. I am IFBB Pro Luxando, and we are going to talk a little bit today about a couple of questions about how I use it, why I use it, and what would be the difference of using it off-season and pre-contest. Personally, I've never used it Mediphorm in a gaining phase. I've never used it in the off-season thus far because I'm not. I don't consider my arms, because it's the only place I use it. I don't consider them a genetic weakness or like something I need to bring up. So I use the Mediphorm as a tool pre-contest where I keep it in because it keeps the muscle a lot rounder and fuller, especially when I'm in low carbs, low calories. And because my bicep and tricep attachments, the muscle heads are very, very long, so I don't have much of a genetic peak. And my triceps are very long as well, which is a good thing, and it's a good and a bad thing. The good thing is they take the Mediphorm very well and they volumize very nicely. The other thing, the problem is I don't have much of a bicep peak because they're not very short. So what I use it for is, as I said, it's just pre-contest, where I'll add it in probably 10 weeks out, and I will honestly just use basically a maintenance phase. And I at the moment I've been using the rapid load over the traditional Mediphorm. It's a little bit more viscous, which is to my understanding is the only real difference between the two. You get some more of an instant fullness that you would get from a traditional SEO, but it still has all the benefits of just simply building up the amount of hyaluronic acid within the tissue. So the way I use it is, because my arms tend to fade because they're not genetically a strength. The last thing I want is when I hit a front or rear double bicep or a side chest or a side tricep is for my arms to look long and flat. I still need to look round, and that's where the Mediphorm comes in. It keeps everything round and full. So I won't lose any of that through the low calories and the low carbs and the higher cardio and things. So I will typically, for me, I'll only use maybe 2 to 3 mil a week, and I use it in the long head of the tricep and the short head of the bicep. And the reason being is that's just from a visual perspective. When I hit a front double, you're only seeing this long head here, so I want to see that hang down, and the peak is actually the outer head here, and that's what you see. So I'm only targeting this here and just under here, and that's because it just allows visually that little bit of extra fullness. But I wouldn't say I've gained any inches from using Mediphorm, because that's not how I've intended on using it. I've seen plenty of people that have, so we'll touch upon that in a sec. But I have noticed a lot of that visual cosmetic appearance of just a much more like the bellowing muscle bellies, the fullness in the peak of my biceps, because they're not really there if I lose too much fullness. So for me, it's just more of a maintenance phase, and I rely on it to keep a ton of fullness. I've been toying about using the idea of putting it in my chest up here, just in my upper chest. The reason I haven't done that is because I've recently, within the last 6 months, my training has improved to the point where I'm able to recruit my chest more through the training. So I've actually improved the area without needing it. So I've just kind of held off, but I definitely will in the future when it's like got to the point where I just can't eke out anymore. So that's another good point I'm trying to make about Mediphorm, actually. A lot of you guys may rush into using it and use it to cut corners. It doesn't, if you don't have much muscle there, it's not going to do much, because the way it really, really shines, if you have an appreciable amount of muscle already there and you bring Mediphorm into the equation, you will volumize that tissue so much, you'll get that full, round look to it. It's like trying to fill up. It's like trying to blow up a little water balloon and try and make it look like a big balloon. It's never going to happen because it's too small. But if you have a bigger balloon that has more space in it for air, it's going to get bigger and rounder and stretch, which is essentially what Mediphorm is for. So if you're very skinny, I would hold off for a while, build some muscle, and then the product will really shine. So pre-contest, it's just a way for me to maintain the volume, maintain the fullness, and give me a bit more of an illusion of peak in the bicep a bit more, and again, I'm not relying on the Mediphorm, I'm using it as a tool. It's a very, very good tool to use. And as I said in the last entry, you can't really fuck it up, you can't get it wrong. So even if I were to just go in on it and use too much, it's not going to ever look bad, because that's not the way the product works. So let's touch on how I would use it in the off season, how I would kind of advise to use it. Again, the 2 to 3 mil at a time. You have to kind of build up to that, maybe starting with 1.5 mil, building up. When you get to the odd, like the 3 mil applications, and that's where you're quite comfortable, I don't really see much point in doing it any more than every 3 to 5 days, because you guys know, the whole point in the product is not about volumizing the tissue with the actual fluid itself, which is the case with the traditional SEO. You need to use the product to allow hyaluronic acid to build up within the tissue over time. So the more applications over time, the more propensity it has to actually bind to the tissue. So you need to really give it a chance. If you load it up with 10 mil in one go, it might look all big and full for about a week and all swollen, but how much of that hyaluronic acid is actually going to bound to the tissue? Very little, because only a certain amount can. Had you split that 10 mil up into, say, 2 mil applications over 5 applications, you'd have a lot more chance for that to actually attach and bind over time. So it's very much a slow burner, but it really works well if you use it that kind of small step-by-step approach. And again, I use the analogy on the last video. It's like using 1 tub of protein and saying, oh, I didn't gain 10 pounds of muscle. Well, you're not going to, but if you keep doing it, you will. So it's very much a consistency base. Rather than just trying to get it all in one go and rush it, you need to take your time, let it marinate. Take your time with it. But basically, the difference between pre-contest and off-season is just how frequent the applications are. So instead of doing them, say, once a week for the maintenance kind of phase like I'm doing, you would just do it more often because you're trying to build up the hyaluronic acid within the tissue. When you've got to the point where you're like, that looks great, I'm happy with that, then you can back off to, say, 2 mil once a week or 2 mil every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it takes. Everyone's slightly different depending on how much muscle you have. The rapid load, from what I've seen with clients I work with and people who have inboxed me about Mediphorm, the rapid load seems to be a little bit better for the bigger guys because you do get that instant fullness. And if any of you guys want that instant fullness, you kind of want the instant gratification, which is kind of the age we live in, the rapid load's probably the best way to go. Like I said, it's a lot more viscous. But in terms of the longevity, both products offer the same in terms of the long game. So again, that's your personal preference. So again, I'm trying to keep it very simple. It is a very simple product. It's a very, very simple product. It's just about applications over time. It's not about how much you can force in one go. And it's also not really the best idea to try and grow 3 or 4 inches within a month, because it's not going to happen. Anything that happens too fast, especially in bodybuilding, is never good. Anything that gives you like instant gratification is never good. It's like you hear of these people that use insulin. And it's very prevalent in our sport, which is fine. It's useful tool, and they gain like 30 pounds of muscle in like 2 weeks. None of it's muscle; it's fullness, and it's an illusion. If you were to use it more conservatively over a longer period of time, because muscle takes a long time to build, then yeah, a lot of it's going to be muscle. So don't expect instant gratification. Use it wisely. Don't rush, and you will absolutely get what you're looking for. So pre-contest, less frequent applications, let any swelling go down, because obviously you need to keep seeing the detail. I don't really get any swelling, but the first time users may, so keep an eye on that. So less frequent applications for the volume. I would normally cut it out about 10 days away from the show, just to let any inflammation from the application to go away. And in the off season, I would recommend using slightly smaller amounts a lot more frequently. So like I said, 2-3 mil every 3 to 5 days within the same muscle group. Depending how it feels. If it's sore, leave it. If it's not, great. But the soreness definitely dissipates after a while. If you've been using it like quite well for a good few weeks, you won't experience any soreness. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to touch upon today. The pre-contest, how I use it pre-contest, how you guys can use it pre-contest, and what you can expect with the off-season. Don't rush it. Don't expect miracles, because nothing in bodybuilding that happens quickly is worth it. But if you use it correctly with the frequent applications and you're consistent with it and you're training and eating, you will absolutely get the results you're looking for. And I can almost guarantee that. I mean, I actually haven't seen anyone that's used it properly not get the results they're looking for. So again, it's not a magic potion, but it's certainly a fucking brilliant tool to have. If you want it to bring up like the visual aesthetics, you can pretty much use it anywhere. I mean, obviously the bigger the muscle group, the more you're going to have to use. I've never seen anyone use it in their quads, but I'd imagine it would work. I know a lot of females have used it in their glutes, which is a much bigger muscle group, and I've seen some great results. You can check that out on the Mediphorm Facebook group. I've actually seen some women use it as lip filler, which is very interesting. I mean, I've not done that. I don't need to. I've got nice lips. But yeah, it's a great product. Don't rush. Take your time. Let it do its job. You know, you can't rush the process. Just like you can't build, just like training more and eating more doesn't mean you're going to get more quickly. You know, it doesn't work like that. So it's very much in the same vein as most things in bodybuilding: time, consistency. They're the two things you need. But if you want to put a bit of size and fullness in your arms or whatever, you're going to get there a hell of a lot quicker using Mediphorm, but remember to use it correctly. And as before, if any of you guys have any questions you want to ask me or the team at Mediphorm, you can email them, or you can Instagram Mediphorm, or you can email me on Instagram, which is Luke Sando, or you can just send me an email at lukesando@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Great product. I strongly believe in it, and you know, it's one of those taboo subjects in the sport, and finally a company like Mediphorm have come around and actually delivered a very good product that does exactly what it says it is without fucking ruining everyone's physiques left, right and centre. So until next time, cheers for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.